Okay, it's 1 minute after 1. We will get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Michigan Historic Preservation Network webinar series. My name is Xiaohan Bao Smith. I'm the Historic Properties Coordinator of the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. And our webinar topic today is Cemetery Preservation and U of M-Flint, Connecting the Future to the Past through the Study of Cemeteries. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over some Zoom tips. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box as you think of them. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties, please also put the questions in the Q&A box. The resources that we discussed during the presentation will be put through the chat box. Both the Q&A and chat boxes are located at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you don't see them, please wiggle your mouse. They should pop up. There would be 2 polls today during the webinar. Please take a moment to participate in the polls. If this is your first time attending our webinar, we are the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We advocate for Michigan's historic places to contribute to our economic viability, sense of place, and connection to the past. We could not do the work we do without our members and volunteers, so please consider joining us at www.mhpn.org. The webinar is supported in part by an award from the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. We thank our sponsors for supporting our webinar. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our first speaker, Dr. Thomas Henthorn. Dr. Thomas, please introduce yourself and go ahead and share your screen if you need it.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I've got a few things I'll share with you. First of all, I want to thank you for and thank the Michigan Historic Preservation Network for inviting us to this. My name is Thomas Henthorn. I'm the Wyatt Endowed Professor of Public History at the University of Michigan-Flint. Sitting next to me is a former student and alumnus of University of Michigan-Flint, Tim Riley. We'll get to know him in a bit. Also joining us are Casey DeMoss, Giovanni Galdoni, and John Brown, all current students at the University of Michigan-Flint, and they're going to tell you what kind of work I've had them up to. But I want to first kind of start by giving you guys kind of an overview of our program and kind of where cemetery preservation fits into this. And then the rest of our participants are going to kind of get into the nuts and bolts and tell you exactly, kind of what they're doing out there. So the cemetery preservation work that we do fits in with in the history program that we have at the University of Michigan-Flint. And there's 3 basic ways that we're working on this. One is through kind of research. The second is through a couple of classes. And then the final one is an internship that we have that's in kind of cultural resource management and cemetery preservation. So we originally got into this kind of work. My background is in urban history and public history, and I'd been using cemeteries as kind of teaching sites, about ways to tell people about, engage students in kind of local places that tell stories about local history. And as we started using those, we started to see a real need to keep those up. Because there's a lot of neglected historic sites in Flint. So we, reached out. We got the proper kind of training through a number of different agencies. There's a lot of great organizations out there. National Park Service for one. Made sure that we got the right kind of training and everything for our staff and faculty, and then started, including preservation in the internships and in with the coursework that we teach. So one of the courses that we're offering this fall, I have 2 students from it. It's called Cities of the Dead. and it's the History and Preservation of Cemeteries. So I have 2 students from that. And then the other student is the intern, and then Tim took the class and the internship, and also is an alumnus, and he's kind of currently working in preservation himself. One of the things we try to do too, that I want to share with you, is that we try to cast a pretty wide net. We're a small department. We are not a huge, don't have a huge number of students doing the internships or taking the courses. And we're primarily just stationed at, we do all of our work at only two cemeteries in Flint. But what we'll try to do today is show you how we try to cast a pretty wide net using those resources and trying to get more people involved in the preservation of cemeteries. So that's kind of one of the main missions that we have here, is trying to basically do more with the kind of resources that we have available. So I'll share a little bit of our screen with you. One of the things that we have is when we go out is we like to share our big toys. And this is one of them. So there's John and I at a recent workshop that we held for the Michigan Historic Preservation Network in Flint at Glenwood Cemetery. That's a rural cemetery here in Flint. And there we are with the help of Tim, and we repaired a headstone. You can see one of the assignments I had my students do is they're supposed to actually decorate their helmet. And I can't remember if that's, I think John did. I don't think he had his helmet with him or something. I can't remember why his helmet's not decorated with that. So, but that's the nice thing about the university as our program, is we've got, we're able to actually equip ourselves with some pretty good equipment that helps us out there in the cemetery. That particular piece of equipment you're looking at there is a portable gantry crane. And we can, it's made of aluminum and it has a 1-ton capacity, and we can wheel that, and it has big, huge pneumatic tires on it. We can wheel that anywhere in a cemetery. And anybody that's ever been to a rural cemetery knows that there's not a lot of flat surfaces in a rural cemetery. So you can put it in a place that's kind of, kind of halfway down a hill and level it off and, put that together. That was probably about I think altogether that piece is, I think about 7 feet, about a 7-foot obelisk there that we were repairing. So I'll share my screen again when I hand it off to Tim, but for now, that's kind of the highlights. So that's one of the bells and whistles we always like to share for that. But as far as the specific work we do, the first person I'd like to hand it off to is Casey DeMoss, who is taking History 403, Cities of the Dead.
Good afternoon. My name is Casein DeMoss, obviously, and I'm an art history major at the University of Michigan-Flint. And I decided to take this class. It just sounded extremely interesting. I saw it on the course listing as Cities of the Dead, and the course description was historic and preservation of cemeteries. I didn't actually talk that meant that we were going to go out into the cemetery and actually help preserve, like hands-on. And so the first day was a little like, oh, all right, great, let's go out to the cemetery. But it's been such a rewarding experience, and it really does interest anyone that I tell about it. They say, what did you do today? And I say, well, I was in the cemetery, kind of washing headstones. We lift them up out of the ground, kind of re-level, really make things look a lot nicer than they did, even just kind of digging them out of the ground. And they say, wow, that's so great. That's such great work that you do. You do that for a class? And I say, yeah, no, it's just offered by the university. It's really, really cool. And yeah, so that combination of history and preservation, I think, is really unique to the class, and also really, really great for it as well. There's also a lot of opportunities to teach. I actually taught led a workshop for some Kettering students. We had about 40 students go out to the Glenwood Cemetery, and we kind of split up into groups, and I basically led them in teaching them how to properly clean the stones, kind of overlooked all of the operations there that were happening. And that was a really rewarding experience as well. You know, they say the best way to test your knowledge is to try to teach it. And so everything's really, really cemented in there now. But yeah, the hands-on approach, I think, is really important, and also, like I said, really rewarding when it comes to this kind of work. We actually had the opportunity to meet someone from a family plot we were restoring, and kind of cleaning and helping to reset. And just speaking with them and seeing how thankful they were, and they were like, "Wow, this is such a good thing you guys are doing," is not only rewarding educationally, but also even just emotionally. Wow, this is such good work. But yeah, and it's also really interesting to just kind of look around the cemetery and start reading the names and thinking about the people who who have been in the city, who have lived here, where they've come from. We found one headstone in the old cavalry cemetery that marched with Napoleon and then ended up coming over, crossing the pond and dying in Flint. And then we also found a different headstone of a couple of Polish twins that died together, unfortunately, as children. And someone took a picture of that headstone in a different language and figured that out. And it's just really interesting. It really makes you think and realize that every stone really does have a story, whether it's a large name or just an average Joe person. But yeah, it's been a really great class. I'm really happy that I took it. And the art elements that are in there not only help with my degree, but also help with just the general knowledge basis of history in general. But yeah, it's been great. And I'll pass it off.
So next, thank you, Casey. Thank you. Next up, we're going to pass it off to Giovanni Galdoni. Now, one of the options that people have for this class is to take it 100% remotely, to where you don't even show up to campus. And Giovanni, what we do is we have some of the coursework has some information online. And then, of course, as Casey mentioned to you, there's some hands-on stuff where we meet as a class out at specific historic sites. But the total remote option is Giovanni actually chooses his own cemetery, and he gets a kit shipped to him that has all the cleaning materials. And so he's doing everything we're doing, but he's doing it right next to his house. So I'll hand it off to Giovanni.
Hello, I'm Giovanni. I'm a political science major with a history minor. I'm not sure exactly how far along I am in my college journey because I had to switch majors, but I've done about 3 semesters, not 3 semesters, a few semesters. So yeah, I took this class online. I got the kit shipped to me. I have a few of the things from the kit right here. Here's the D2 spray bottle, it's the pesticide, which helps, the herbicide, which helps kill the lichen on the stones. And yeah, I live in Flushing, so I picked the Flushing City Cemetery as the cemetery I wanted to preserve. It was one I liked to visit a lot before this class, which is what helped inform me take this class. And I've always known that there have been a lot of, the cemetery was in need of work. And interestingly, when I was getting permission to work in the cemetery, I had to contact the public works director, and he let us know that there was actually a pretty big interest in cemetery preservation in Flushing. But of course, not everybody knows exactly how to do that. So I was able to basically connect this group of people with my professor and and hopefully next summer we can do a workshop to help show the people of Flushing who are interested in this how to actually preserve cemeteries. So that's been really exciting. I really hope we can help rejuvenate this cemetery. And as far as what I've done so far, I have a lot of pictures to show of what I've done. So I'll start doing that right now. So this is a kind of flat, I think a lawn memorial style gravestone. This is one of the last ones I did. I tried to pick a variety of material and shape. This one, as you can see, it's covered in lichen, it's covered in dirt. It's actually almost being retaken by the earth, just buried over here. And then a picture of the afterwards. You can see it's a lot brighter. You wouldn't be able to tell that, but it was a lot brighter than you'd think it was. And I was able to dig a little bit around it to stop it from being reburied. And yeah, then continuing, this was the first one I did. This is a pretty interesting shape. And as you can see, it's really covered in a lot of lichen. I didn't get a good picture of like the shelf here, but there was a ton of lichen just covering this area. And here's another before picture. You can see the inside here more clearly. And then here's an immediate after picture. As you can see, it's still wet, but I was able to get a lot of the lichen out of this, this detailing area and cleaning the bottom of this as well. And I took a picture of the inside of the shelf. As you can see, there's still some lichen there, but some of it's so stuck on that you just need to let it be killed by the D2. But also a lot was taken out, which was really nice. And then here's an after picture, just nice, and you can see a lot of the moss and lichen that was there before is now gone. And yep. This was a family grave. I don't know a lot about this family in particular, but then this last one, which I've saved the best for last, it was a marble gravestone. This is a Civil War badge style, so we could tell this person fought the Civil War. It doesn't say exactly when he lived and died, though based on research I've done, some cursory research I've done, it seems like he died in 1910, and he's part of the Packard family, which is a family you'll see a lot in the cemetery. In fact, there was a Packard who actually helped found the cemetery in Flushing. So yeah, as you can see, a lot of lichen, a lot of dirt and such, which is messing with the natural color of the marble. And then another picture, you can see a lot on the back. There's a lot of lichen on the back. And also on the side. But then after a cleaning, you can see it's completely transformed. It looks as it should. It was really cool to see this happen. And here's a comparison between a similar grave next to it who didn't get any treatment. Hopefully next season I can go out there and do the same method here, which I can do because I've received this kit and I still have plenty of material to work with, so I can continue to do this sort of thing even after the class ends, which is nice. This class has just been nice because it's helped me look into local history. Physically with the gravestones, as well as the genealogy project has helped me look into more the lives of these people as well. I'm looking into a man who is particularly interesting, who helped kind of start the populist movement in all of Michigan, not just Flushing. And yeah, I think that's about it. For me, I'll hand it back off to Dr. Henthorn.
Great, thanks. Thanks so much, Giovanni. Yeah, I really like that picture, the two of them side by side. I like that. One thing you guys will notice if you took a close look at those pictures that Giovanni shared is lawnmowers are really the biggest enemy to preservation out there. And you can see kind of the scrapes and stuff on the side of that from lawnmowers right there. Yeah, so right there, yeah, that's lawnmowers, and that could also be from a trimmer, a gas-powered trimmer with just a plastic line will do a lot of damage to a marble marble headstone. So yeah, thanks so much, Giovanni.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it does. It's really great work. Yeah. All right. So next, I want to hand it off to John Brown. John was one of our interns last summer for this. Take it away, John. Oops. Got to unmute. John, unmute there. There you go.
Sorry.
All right, there you go.
Hello, my name is John Brown. I'm a junior and a history major with the University of Michigan-Flint. During the summer, I took an internship with Dr. Henthorn because I thought it would be an interesting and valuable learning experience. I had a great time. Some of the things we learned were how to clean the headstones using that soap, and also how to use, and also removing the like fixing the bases because the headstones had fallen over using gravel or dirt. Some of the things I did though, besides working at the besides cleaning the headstones and also removing bases, was I also had a specific job that we got to choose at the beginning of the internship. It was I got to do signage repair.
Before I hand it off to Tim, I'll talk a little bit about the projects. Each one of the interns, in addition to kind of doing cleaning work, they meet with the site, and in this case, for John, it was Old Calvary Cemetery. And one of the projects that one of my students did, is I want to share it with you guys, is what we do is we have people that show up to Old Calvary, show up to New Calvary, the other cemetery, the office over there, and they're interested in helping out, or they want to clean a headstone because it's a family member, or that they want to clean, they just want to help out at the cemetery. And you know, many times they're well-meaning, but they'll come in there with the wrong kind of materials. So one of my students created this kit that you pick up at the office, and it's a bucket. These are one of the brushes we use. It's a natural bristle brush, so it's really super soft. There's a small version of it, same kind. It's a Tampico bristle brush. Not the kind of stuff you can get at like Home Depot or something like that. So this is really good to get inside the letters, if it's incised letters. There's a couple of so leave it to college students to put Orvis paste inside of Jello shot containers. So they get a couple of a little bit of Orvis paste. And one of the challenges with Orvis paste is, or any kind of soap that's really concentrated, is there's always the danger of somebody using, you know, way too much of it. So we just give them a teeny bit of it, and then they also get some D2, and they pick it up at the office, and then there's some detailed instructions on how to you know, how to use it and what the material is. And they can go, and if they want to go clean a headstone, they just they could go you know, to the local cemetery, you know, the other cemetery at Old Calvary and clean a headstone. Yeah, somebody said that's all the Orvis you need. You do about 20 headstones with the Jello shot work. Yeah, it's pretty intense stuff. I always tell people to just use a little bit in there with that. So but as I said, we'll give them we give them really good instructions, things like making sure you rinse the stone thoroughly, that's a good example of how we're trying to take and cast a wider net. Part of John's project for his signs is similar to that. It's at the same cemetery, and people would show up to the cemetery and want to know, you know, where somebody was buried, and there's no section numbers out there, even though everything's done by section number. So that's what John's project was. Did you want to tell them a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, sure. Part of the problem with the original map was there were two maps created. What was the name of the other guy? His name was P.
Yeah, Perry.
Perry.
Yeah, Merle Perry. Yeah.
Anyway, the section signs were all arranged differently on his map compared to the other map. So my job was to go and research through the diocese headstones in their file cabinets. And I was using that information in order to cross-check and make sure which map was the correct one for the headstones placed in the cemetery. And I eventually found out that the original map was the correct one, and after that, I just went around and replaced all the signs with the new ones that we made from the plastic wood Formica, I think.
It's PVC board.
PVC board. And I helped paint the signs to make them better from Factory 2, which is also a great place to go to for projects like this. After we replaced the signs, I also helped install posts for the new sections that we added to the map, and using the mechanical auger, the drill. And we helped replace the map, didn't we, with the new one, so that when people came in, they could see that the sections where the sections relate to the new signs in the cemetery.
I have a quick question for you, John.
Mhm.
Would you mind sharing with folks the experience for the...
You just freeze framed.
Oh, sorry. Would you mind sharing with folks the Alpina workshop experience?
Sure. When we went to Alpina, we helped supervise and teach others who didn't know these methods of using the Orvis soap to clean the headstones, or like how to replace bases. Like we showed them how to use the crane, the granary crane, to lift them up, and also epoxy them back on when the headstones had fallen apart into sections. We also discussed why we used the soap and the D2, because they were non-abrasive to the stone and non-harmful to the environment. And the D2 ensured that lichen would not grow back. Do we have any pictures from that?
From the cemetery? I'll see if I can find some. Yeah, I'll see if I can find some. You've got it. You keep talking, and I'll see if we can find it.
The reason why I took the summer internship with Dr. was I thought it would be a valuable learning experience, and because when you think about history, you normally think about teaching, but this was sort of a way of learning about another way to apply a history major to another type of job, and learn some valuable skills that you could take with you, like learning how to clean the headstones or replacing the bases. Like going to I also thought it was a good job for the community, because Old Calvary, the cemetery we mainly worked at, was dilapidated with like most of the headstones. Some of the headstones were falling over, some of them hadn't been cleaned, and the people who were maintaining it were kind of using hitting the stone with the lawnmower. Also, there's gopher holes, like they just dig anywhere. Like they even dug underneath one of the headstones. And I didn't.
Yeah, I have I can share that screen with you. I'll share that screen with everybody right now here. So here is this is Evergreen Cemetery. This is where we were at up in Alpena, and we were invited up there, so we went up there and gave them a workshop. This is us at work, kind of replacing something with the Gantry Crane. You can see we take a lot of safety precautions. Like I said, oh, there you did, John. You did decorate your helmet. So take a lot of safety precautions. The students have to wear special shoes and helmets for overhead.
There's my shiny helmet.
Yeah, there's your helmet right there. There's a Tiara and Whitney showing a few folks how to do the cleaning with in the headstones. So doing some of those marble ones, you get a lot of bang for your buck when you do those white marble ones, like the one Giovanni showed us. And there's a full-size shot of the Gantry Crane right there. So there's one that we cleaned and put back together, and then we'll take in it was one where the base was leaning, so we righted the base and made sure it was level, and then put it back down on top of it. That's one of the biggest problems we run into cemeteries with things like that, is with the freeze and the thaw in Michigan, they fall over pretty easily. And then there's John again. So we there. So yeah, so that was the Alpina one. So that's a good example of where we went up there and tried to, like I said, cast a wide net with the limited resources that we've got.
Just want to say I had a great time for the summer internship. It was a valuable learning experience, and learned a lot of skills. Learned
Great.
how I could apply history in a different way than just teaching.
Super. Thanks, John. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to hand it off to Tim. Tim Riley. Tim is an alum from M-Flint. While he's talking, I'm actually going to try to answer some of these questions that folks have here. So go ahead, Tim. You're
my name is Tim Riley. As Dr. said, I returned to college after several years away from university. I guess I'm considered a non-traditional student. I returned in 2015 to finish my business degree, but it seems that I had a problem keeping up with technology in the business field, and I fell back on my second love, which is history. And so when Dr. Henthorn's class and the internship were available, and on the syllabus, it was stated that there was field work that was involved. That was right up my alley, because when I left college originally, I went to support a family, and I went into the flooring business, doing hardwood and ceramic tile. So my son yells at me all the time now when we go into a restaurant or a business, because I used to look at the flooring and tell him what kind of flooring it was, the hardwood or whatever. Now we go into a cemetery and I tell him what kind of, if it's an obelisk or whatever, and he just gets bored with me. So either way, he seems to be mad at me. But anyway, during our internship in 2018 at Calvary, I told Doctor that, Doctor, there's not a lot of people that are doing this cleaning business, and I think there's an opportunity to start this business. He agreed with me, I'm not sure, but I think he did. And so I finished my graduation. I graduated in 2020 during COVID, and applied for some museum jobs and various different jobs, but it was right in the heart of COVID, and there was just not a whole lot of positions available. So I just decided to start a cemetery preservation business. And so I'm in the infant stage of the business. I started it maybe 3 months ago, and I'm acquiring. I started a website and have been acquiring customers through word of mouth and through the website. And so far, I've done probably 7 or 8 cleaning of monuments, and it's been very gratifying. So far, the customers that I've been dealing with have been people that haven't been able to get to, for various reasons, to a cemetery to see relatives, be it age or whatever. And so what I do is I will take a before picture, and I will clean the monument and then return a picture to them to show them what insignias and what description of the headstones are. And it's been very gratifying so far.
I got 2 dogs here.
And so it's been very, very gratifying for me to, as a history major, not only to make the monuments look better and preserving them, but to let the customers know what these, be it maybe a dove, which means peace, or a flame, which means the fire of life. There's so many different interpretations of a headstone that can be revealed upon cleaning if it's been there for a while. So that's a gratification that I get. And additionally, one of the
Well, Tim's talking, I'm going to share his website.
one of the reasons that propelled me into this business is there's a precursor class to our capstone. It's and it's a 10 to 15 page paper that is required. And I selected, being of Irish heritage, I selected the potato famine, the Great Potato Famine in the mid 1800s in Ireland. And I did this before I took the preservation class. And when I started the preservation class at Old Calvary, it was, many of the monuments are from Irish immigrants. And it was kind of like I'm getting primary sources for my paper, as I would research some of these immigrants and trace their heritage back to Ireland, and many of them had left during the Irish famine. And so that really helped out on that particular paper and propelled me to start my own business.
Put in the link. Yeah, so I shared a few things with you here from Tim's. One of the big things that we run into problems with are just leveling the headstones. So this one here, the Frawley family stone, as you notice that if you can catch it soon enough, if you can get the headstone to be re-leveled, you can keep them. You can. Oh, somebody said, "Hey, that picture was of you." You can get the you basically, if you walk out into a cemetery, and a lot of times you'll see these big stones just knocked over. You'll see usually it's just because of gravity is what the problem was. So leveling a headstone is one of the best ways that you can do that. And you notice this is another thing that we use to level the stones with it here. So when you pick it up from the top, you put a great deal of strain on the stone. So we also have another piece of equipment that allows us to actually pick the stone up from the bottom. And so we can pick the stone up, we can lift it up in the air. It's called a tombstone. That's called the tombstone jack. And we can lift it up in the air and then put down whatever we need down at the bottom. We're currently using a product called MonuGrid, which is actually a plastic grid that you fill full of pea gravel or crushed limestone in place of putting a cement base down. And it's much more flexible. It's a lot easier to lug out to a cemetery than a big giant precast base. And you can make them, and you can put them together and make them different sizes and everything. So, so that's a good example of another good example of the kind of different work that we're doing. I want to take a second to I'll stop sharing the screen and answer a couple of questions that people have had that it's too much for me to type. One person asked about the Gantry Crane that we have, and the Gantry Crane we bought from Mazel. It's M-A-Z-E-L-L. And they're a company right out here, right out of Michigan. I think that the crane itself is made in either California or Pennsylvania, but it's Mazel is the company that we got that from. And I should mention too that one of the things that pays for this is we actually have an endowment in our program, the Wyatt Endowment. that helps pay for engaged learning projects like this. So that's where the money comes from for all the equipment that we use for this type of thing. And somebody asked, Wendy Fry asked, do we document everything? We do. So the process we go through is there's a really great form that's in the State of Michigan Preservation Handbook, Cemetery Preservation Handbook, and we use that as the basis for documenting everything. And for right now, we don't have them on file with the Historical Society or the local library. We have them with our archives. So, but that's a good suggestion to share that. We actually had an intern from the computer science program is working on an app for us that we could use to go out there, and you could fill all of the same information out on your phone. But yeah, before the students do anything, we document it, take a before picture, document everything on the form, and take an after picture, and then we save all that information. So we've got a pretty hefty binder started. You know, for that process. But that's a good idea. I could see where like our local library has a pretty hefty genealogy section, so they would be really interested in having something like that. Let's see. Any other questions I have here? Yeah, one thing I want to share before the thing is to let you guys know the class the students are taking, that Casey and Giovanni are taking right now is not just a class on preservation. It's actually a class that is broadly about the history of cemeteries and where they kind of fit in with development and stuff. So the students have had you know, lectures on, there's a really thrilling lecture on stone identification. So I know that one is probably one that they want to skip over. But I cover a lot of different topics, like you know, the rural cemetery movement, garden cemeteries, you know, memorial parks, different types of monument, like monument bronze, the whole story behind you know, the monument bronze company and zinc, and then kind of dive into some different type of issues within cemeteries and things. So one of my these, like they haven't come across it yet, but it's coming up. One of the topics that we'll do in class is LGBTQ plus representation in cemeteries. That's really kind of a cool topic that, you know, about memorializing how, you know, how we memorialize people and why that matters, and that's a really good example of that. So again, it's a pretty broad class. One thing we also do too is that a lot of the content is online, and then the students come together one day a week. And we actually just had our last one a couple of weeks ago because we can only work so far into the, you know, so far we can only work outside for so long because we actually already had one frost. So once we do the frost, once you have a frost hit, you can't work out in the cemetery anymore because you're because of the stones cracking. So let me see if I got a couple more questions here. Let me see. A finger pointing upward. So a finger pointing upward. So I can't tell you exactly what that means. So that's a good question. But a lot of times, one of the challenges with interpreting specific symbols is that if you actually go and look at some of the catalogs for monuments, they say different things in them. But often, what a picture pointing up will mean that you know, it's an indication that that person you know, has a strong belief in the afterlife. One thing I think to keep in mind about symbolism in cemeteries, especially 19th century cemeteries, is that the symbolism is designed to demonstrate that the people are temporarily at rest. So if you think about that, compare that to if anybody's ever been to a cemetery out in, you know, colonial New England. Those are pretty scary. I mean, the Puritans are kind of a dismal lot. So you know, so their headstones are kind of scary, and they have basically their headstones are there to remind you that hey, you're going to be dead one day. Yeah, that kind of stuff there too. So the So those kind of figures, like the figure pointing up, is the idea that it's kind of a kinder, gentler reminder of death. So that's one thing I always try to tell people when they ask questions about symbolism. Some cemeteries have signage that suggests I shouldn't be in there if I'm not there for a specific grave right and purpose. Yeah, I find that some places I should probably mind some of those signs. But that's a good example of why you have to ask permission. Some cemeteries are municipally owned, but in a sense they're not public parks. So you're technically, it's private property that you're coming on. So you have to be mindful of that when you enter a cemetery, which is why I have students make sure they ask permission. We have an agreement. We have written agreements with Old Calvary Cemetery. Old Calvary Catholic Cemetery is the oldest existing cemetery in Flint. And we also have an agreement with Glenwood Cemetery. That's the second oldest existing cemetery in Flint. So those are the two we work with. But you bring up a good point, and something to remember that, when you do go to a cemetery, it's most of the time it's private property that you're getting on. So good question there. All right.
Dr. Henthorn, I think we have 2 polls. Do you want to launch it right now?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the first one is, would you be interested in coming to Flint for a cemetery preservation workshop? Everybody please take a moment to participate. Okay, so
What's your
yeah, I think 85% of people said yes. And our second poll is, do you know anybody in your community that does cemetery preservation? Okay. So it looks like 57% people said yes. There are people in their community that they know that does cemetery preservation, but 43% people don't know. Maybe
interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons we asked that is to just to get an idea, as I said, is I like to take students out, out to someplace in Michigan for a preservation workshop in the summertime. And then I always, we had a really successful workshop in Flint. And as long as the MHPN is interested, we'd be happy to host another one here in Flint again. We had a lot of people really enjoyed themselves in that. I put a few things in the chat. I put my email address in the chat. If anybody has any questions that come up afterwards. Again, we're always happy to show people and talk with people about how to clean it. But if you're ever going to do repair work, so when we do, I always tell people to hire a professional. So I put Tim's in there as well. That's one of the things we always try to do, is try not to get people to kind of bite off more than they can chew. Because when we do the repair work, that's tends to be pretty involved. I can actually share the screen real quick of recently. Let me find it. A good one here. A close up one like that. That one's it. Yeah. So what we do is, I'll show you when we do. Here's a good example of a repaired headstone. We use a two-step process, right? Tim is putting on some a lime-based mortar right there to fill in the cracks. when we first put the stone together, we use, here he is right here. You can see how deep those cracks are. We only put a tiny bit of epoxy on these stones for that. So we use, for the epoxy, we use a product from Bondstone. So it's very highly recommended. You can see it in the preservation briefs. And we use very little of that, right? Because if the headstone's going to break, we want it to break in the same spot. So, and also too is you've probably been out to cemeteries where people put too much of something on there and it oozes out the sides and everything. So that particular headstone that you're looking at right there has probably 4 little dots of epoxy about the size of maybe a quarter, holding it together. And then what'll strengthen that then is then we go back over it with a lime-based mortar. And that's a really good product because it's really it's not harsh on the stone, and then it also has the added effect of strengthening it just a little bit. So it's aesthetically it's a little pleasing. Go ahead, Tim.
One thing I might add, Doc, is that you could caulk that with a acrylic caulk, but it wouldn't preserve the aesthetic of the stone itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the mortar tends to blend in and gives the rough texture of the 150-year-old monument itself. So it kind of blends in versus a acrylic mortar, which would kind of stick out more.
And then the one thing about the use of a mortar, there's another product we're playing around with. It's called Casein Glue, which is a lime-based product. I'm using it yesterday. Yeah, and so the one thing is, you remember that marble, stone of any kind, is permeable, right? Which means water can. I'm trying to figure out where my cursor is so I can stop my screen share. Water is, the stone is permeable. Epoxy is not. When the water hits it, it stops. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that we use a product on there that is permeable, just like the stone. And so lime-based mortar is permeable. That's the main reason that we use products like that, as opposed to using a ton of epoxy that's out there. So yeah. Let me see. Hadley's a small community south of here. I think the Hadley Township Historical Society might be interested in participating in a workshop. Oh, I'll write that down. I'll write them down. I know right where Lapeer is. Somebody is plugging the 42nd annual statewide conference. We actually might be doing a panel there. Myself and our archivist and a board member from Glenwood might be doing something there. So I'll do that. So, historical society. That.
I actually have one more question. What kind of development pressure do cemeteries face?
Oh, lots. Lots. So one of the, have you guys, let me ask Giovanni and Casey, have you guys had the lecture, you move the headstones but not the bodies?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Giovanni, you haven't gotten that one yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things, so I have a whole lecture on that. So that line, you move the headstones from but not the bodies, that's actually a famous line from Poltergeist, in the 1980s. And believe it or not, cemeteries are just as much a victim of urban renewal and development as any other kind of historic site. So yeah, they are. And one of the things I always like to remind people of is that go to any decent sized community and they have a story of where the cemetery used to be. And probably a story about how the stones were moved, and most of the people, they think they got most of the people. So yeah, so that's a huge problem. I'll give you an example. Philadelphia itself, in the middle of the 20th century, removed about a dozen historic cemeteries. So I think the most famous incident is one in Denver. a park out in Denver where they're just still there, and they go out there in with ground penetrating radar, one of the local universities, to show people all the interred that are kind of left behind under this development and everything. So yeah, so that's a great question. It's a huge. But actually, if anybody's looking for a PhD dissertation, I think urban renewal and cemeteries. I think that's a good topic that somebody can probably do.
Yeah, I think we have answered all the questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Henthorn, and thank you, all the speakers. Thank you, Casey, Giovanni, John, and Tim. We're so glad to have this webinar this week, which is a Halloween week. All the participants today, thank you for participating in our webinar, and you will receive an email when the recording is available. And in the same email, you will receive a link to the survey. Please help us to improve our webinars by participating in the survey. And if you would like to check our past webinars, it's all of our past webinars on the YouTube channel. The name of the channel is Michigan Historic Preservation Network. And if you would like to attend our future webinars, please check our website at www.mhpn.org. Our next webinar is scheduled for November 18th. The topic is Guerrilla Preservation, Stopping Demolition Through Grassroots Advocacy. And hope to see you all next time. Well, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, students. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Really enjoyed it.